The biological reality and natural history of our world contain stories so strange that even the most wild fiction could hardly imagine them. Among these, the journey of how spiciness breached the evolutionary history and everyday existence of humanity remains one of the most thrilling, suspenseful, and mysterious chapters of all. Let us travel back in time, roughly 10,000 years ago, as the Earth was gradually emerging from its final ice age. Deep within the vast, humid tropical rainforests of the lands we now call South America or Mexico, lush vegetation grew in deep green layers, intertwining into an inescapable labyrinth. Early morning fog hung heavily over ancient canopies, carrying the dense dampness of rich soil, rotting leaf litter, and the fragrance of countless unnamed wildflowers. Within this untouched, silent wilderness, groups of prehistoric humans moved quietly. They were hunter-gatherers, their bodies muscular, bare, and covered in trail dust and scratches from forest thorns. Their eyes were sharp and vigilant, constantly scanning through the foliage, for in this unforgiving world, every human sense had to operate at 100% capacity for a single purpose: survival. For prehistoric humans, food was the razor-thin boundary between life and death. Yet, putting anything new into one's mouth was a dangerous gamble. A sweet wild fruit could sustain an entire tribe through a prolonged period of hunger, but a fruit containing potent toxins could send the strongest hunters into the void within hours of violent convulsions. Survival instinct had carved a profound sense of suspicion into their brains toward anything unfamiliar. Amidst the diverse flora of the tropical jungle, a low, slender bush grew quietly beneath the shade of ancient trees, the wild chili plant. Hanging from its delicate branches were small fruits, no larger than a fingertip, gleaming with a red so vivid, glossy, and intense beneath the rare sunbeams filtering through the canopy. In the evolutionary language of nature, bright colors are rarely a friendly invitation. Vibrant reds, fiery oranges, or deep purples in plants or animals often serve as a biological warning sign reading, "Beware, I am poisonous." To the eyes of a prehistoric human, the glossy red of the wild chili simultaneously triggered an instinctual fear and exerted a powerful pull on an empty, aching stomach. A prehistoric hunter paused before the unfamiliar bush. He stepped closer, reaching out with a calloused, rough hand. With a caution refined over thousands of generations, his fingers gently plucked a single bright red berry. Its surface felt smooth, delicate, and full of moisture. He brought the fruit close to his nose and sniffed. There was no alluring scent of familiar sweet fruit, nor was there any foul, pungent odor of decaying matter or deadly poison. Gathering instinct taught prehistoric humans an unshakable rule of survival: never swallow a new, unfamiliar plant whole. The only way to test it was a tentative nibble with the front teeth, using a tiny piece to gauge the body's reaction. And the moment those rough teeth crushed the thin skin of the wild chili berry, a chain reaction of chemical magic, severity, and pure sensory illusion exploded inside the human body. For the first second or two, practically nothing happened. The wild fruit tasted merely astringent, mild, with a faint sweetness from the outer skin. But as the plant cell tissues ruptured, millions of colorless, odorless molecules known as capsaicin were released. They instantly flooded the oral cavity, launching a relentless assault on the nerve endings scattered across the mucous membranes of the tongue, palate, and lips. The most surprising and miraculous aspect of this biological event is that capsaicin is neither a cell-destroying toxin nor a tissue-eroding acid. Capsaicin is a supreme master of neurological deception. Within the human body, the surfaces of nerve cells in the oral mucosa contain countless temperature and pain-sensing receptors called TRPV1. Under normal conditions, the TRPV1 receptor acts as a natural fire alarm system. It triggers and sends emergency warning signals to the brain only when the surrounding temperature exceeds 43 degrees Celsius, the dangerous threshold where body tissues begin to suffer physical thermal burns from actual heat or fire. However, the capsaicin molecule possesses a three-dimensional spatial structure so exquisitely unique that it locks perfectly into the TRPV1 receptor like a key into a lock. The instant capsaicin binds, the TRPV1 receptor is trapped and false-fired into activation. It continuously sends urgent electrical impulses traveling along the trigeminal nerve to the prehistoric brain at speeds of hundreds of meters per second. That signal carries a singular message. Fire! The mouth is roasting in extreme heat. The prehistoric brain, having never encountered this biological input over millions of years of prior evolution, immediately plunged into total panic. To prehistoric humans, the concept of spiciness did not exist at all. In their vocabulary, perception, or memory, there was no concept to describe this feeling other than one word: fire. It was an invisible, scorching, roaring flame burning their tongue, palate, lips, and throat from the inside out. Although the actual physical temperature inside the mouth had not risen by even a fraction of a degree, the human nervous system insisted with absolute certainty that every internal tissue was being burned to ash. Receiving the highest level of red alert from the brain, the autonomic nervous system immediately mobilized every defense mechanism against severe thermal burns. A fierce biological battle erupted inside the body. The hunter's heart pounded frantically, pumping blood to subcutaneous vessels in a desperate attempt to shed heat, flushing his face, neck, and chest deep crimson. Sweat poured profusely from his forehead, temples, and back, washing through the trail dust on his cheeks to cool the body down. Tears and nasal fluids flowed uncontrollably, a desperate effort by the immune system to secrete fluids and flush away the perceived toxin or flame searing the mucous membranes. Every inhaled breath brought no cooling relief. Instead, air rushing through the mouth felt like a fresh gust of wind fanning the internal fire. The tongue and palate swelled slightly as blood vessels dilated to their limit. The prehistoric human clutched his throat, writhing, gasping, and collapsing onto the forest floor in sheer terror, believing he had swallowed a glowing ember or a dark curse from the deep jungle. Yet the biological battle raging inside his mouth was actually the result of a deep, sophisticated evolutionary secret belonging to the plant. Why did the wild chili plant produce capsaicin in the first place? Tracing back through millions of years of natural history, the wild chili did not produce capsaicin to serve or attack humans. Capsaicin was a biological weapon honed by nature to solve the challenge of selecting the right seed dispersers. Mammals, from rodents and wild boars to primates and early humans, possess strong teeth capable of crushing plant seeds during chewing. Furthermore, the acid-rich digestive systems of mammals destroy seed embryos entirely, rendering seeds unable to germinate after being swallowed. If mammals ate chilies, the chili species would face extinction. Thus, the chili plant evolved capsaicin, a chemical specifically targeting the TRPV1 receptor present in mammals, to inflict intense pain, driving them away and forcing them to strike chilies off their menu in fear. Birds, on the other hand, messengers of the sky, completely lack capsaicin-sensitive TRPV1 receptors. A bird can casually peck and swallow dozens of bright red chilies without feeling the slightest heat or pain. Birds lack grinding teeth. They swallow fruits whole, and the chili seeds pass through their specialized digestive tracts completely intact. Later, across flights spanning hundreds of kilometers, the seeds are dispersed along with a natural deposit of fertilizer. The chili plant engineered a brilliant survival strategy. Turn away toothy destroyers, welcome winged messengers. Yet the wild chili plant, in its grand evolutionary strategy, could never have foreseen nature's most peculiar and anomalous exception: humanity. Returning to the prehistoric hunter writhing on the forest floor, after several agonizing minutes that felt like eternity, the phantom fire inside his mouth began to subside. Capsaicin molecules, washed by saliva, slowly detached from the TRPV1 receptors. And right as the flames faded, a second, profoundly miraculous chemical phenomenon erupted inside the human brain. Recognizing that the body had just endured intense trauma and stress, the pituitary gland and hypothalamus in the brain responded immediately by releasing massive amounts of endorphins and dopamine. These neurotransmitters act as natural morphine-like painkillers and pleasure producers for the body, a biological self-defense mechanism designed to prevent organisms from going into shock due to extreme pain. As the pain from the phantom inferno receded, a wave of endorphins and dopamine flooded the entire nervous system. A feeling of deep relaxation, euphoria, and heightened alertness spread throughout the hunter's body. Like someone stepping back from the threshold of death, he breathed a deep sigh of relief. The fatigue of a long, exhausting day of hunting vanished instantly. His once weary eyes grew sharp, his mind ignited with clarity, his heart settled into a steady rhythm, and his senses became extraordinarily acute. This is the state that modern science refers to as the survivor's high. The prehistoric human looked down at the ground. The half-bitten wild chili still lay there, gleaming bright red beneath the fading light. He looked at the chili, then felt the extraordinary transformation within his own body. Initial terror gradually gave way to boundless curiosity. He realized an astonishing truth that no other creature on Earth had ever understood. This fruit brought fire and intense pain, yet that fire did not burn the tongue, left no physical wounds, and behind that pain lay an unprecedented surge of euphoria, refreshment, and vitality. That first encounter unlocked an entirely new chapter in human culinary, medical, and biological history. Prehistoric humans began gathering wild chilies to bring back to their tribes. Over generations of observation and experimentation, they learned to control and harness this phantom fire. They discovered that crushing wild chilies and rubbing them onto fresh game meat or boiling them in plant broths not only enhanced flavor and stimulated the palate, but also possessed a miraculous property, keeping meat from spoiling rapidly in the hot, humid jungle air while repelling insects. Thousands of years later, modern science confirmed the absolute validity of prehistoric instinct. Capsaicin is a powerful antioxidant and antimicrobial agent. It can inhibit and destroy up to 75% of common foodborne bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli. Unknowingly, early humans had turned the chili plant's defensive weapon into the first food preservative in human history. Furthermore, when swallowed, the spiciness stimulated the gastric mucosa to produce more gastric juices and digestive enzymes, helping the prehistoric digestive system process tough, fibrous wild game meat with far greater ease. During harsh winters when snow covered the land, or during bitter frost-ridden nights, a touch of heat from dried chilies stimulated blood circulation, dilated blood vessels, warmed their bodies from within, and boosted immunity, helping the tribe endure nature's harshness. From a biological defense mechanism designed to repel mammals, the chili was conquered and domesticated by humans. Mankind became the only creature on Earth to actively seek out pain from food in exchange for pleasure and a wealth of biological benefits. Thousands of years have passed since that first terrifying bite taken by the prehistoric hunter deep in the jungle, and the tiny wild chili bush has completed an unprecedented journey of global presence. From the wild lands of South America, its seeds followed nomadic bands and crossed vast oceans aboard exploration ships to reach every continent. Whenever you bite into a ripe red chili and feel the heat burst across your mouth, sweat beads on your forehead, and your heart skips a beat, remember this: you are reenacting the exact biological reaction, the panic, and the euphoric surge that a prehistoric human experienced thousands of years ago. It is a wondrous intersection of survival instinct, nervous system illusion, and humanity's unquenchable spirit of exploration. An eternal fire that began with a single red berry deep in the primeval forest.